is not the suneater I was prepared for. Hey fantasy and sci-fi fans, welcome back. It's Dan here with Treebeard Book Reviews. And as you guys saw in the thumbnail, I'm going to be reviewing Kingdoms of Death by Christopher Ruocchio, author of the Suneater Cycle. This is book 4 in Suneater. This book actually releases on March 22nd. So there will be a link down below to pre-order on Amazon. You can probably get it wherever you buy books from. This is actually an ARC copy. It is the real copy, but it is an ARC I was sent by Christopher Ruocchio and his team over at DAW. Really happy that I got a physical copy early. I have ordered a signed copy from Christopher from Quail Ridge Books. If you want to get a signed copy, just put a comment below in the Quail Ridge when you're making your order in the pre-order. Just make sure you put a comment saying you would like a signed copy, and Christopher will sign that for you. So this is going to be a spoiler-free review of Kingdoms of Death, but there are going to be obviously some spoilers for Demon in White, Howling Dark, and Empire of Silence. It's the 4th book in the series, but we're going to be doing a spoiler-free review today. I do want to announce that I will be having a chat eventually with Liam's Lyceum, and with Jonathan over at Words in Time. We're going to be doing like a spoiler talk once we've all got our reviews out there. We've all had a few days or weeks to process what's going on with Kingdoms of Death. So yeah, let's start talking about the book. Alright guys, so let's talk Kingdoms of Death. So what's going on? So typical Christopher Ruocchio book, he opens up with this punchy action scene. Again, you're on a different world. You're really learning about what's happened to Hadrian since the events of Demon in White. So again, there's going to be spoilers for Demon in White, Empire of Silence, and Howling Dark. So you jump in with Hadrian right into an action scene, and I really enjoyed it. Like he's good at that, where it's like almost like a James Bond movie, where he sets the scene, breaks the ice with his action, and then he gives you that opportunity for Hadrian to, once that action's done, to start getting into like what's happened since the last novel. So I really like that. This time it's not a big time jump in terms. It's a bigger time jump in terms of years lived for Hadrian. So Hadrian is almost about a century older from from the events of Demon in White. He's had to deal with the the ramifications of what happened in Demon in White, and this again, he's that rising star that was Hadrian Marlowe triumphant. This story really shows you that no matter how high you rise, the further you have to fall. So that is really the biggest message I found in this book. The higher you climb, the farther you fall, and that fall is going to be hard. It's going to be painful, and you are going to be different from it. And that was the biggest takeaway I had from this book is, when you have a life like Hadrian Marlowe, a long life, a life where you are instrumental in the survival of humanity, and are a beacon of the human race and human success. You got a lot of weight on your shoulders, and people are going to want to take you out. So that is really where Hadrian is. He's has this fame. Many people, even within the empire and outside of the empire, are trying to deal with Hadrian Marlowe because he's a force. He is and they realize he's not a natural force. There's something intervening with Hadrian that makes him unnatural. So that's really kind of cool with this book, where you have these forces, within the empire and outside, trying to affect Hadrian. So let's kind of talk about some of the things Christopher does in this book that are really exceptional and that make this book stand out a little bit differently from the other books. So he does a lot of good, I'm going to call it galaxy building, because he does build a lot of worlds here. So you get to see another world. You get to see the Commonwealth. So the Commonwealth is very interesting. It's this human society, but it's really like Orwellian kind of 1984, where it shows you these different types, how different ways humans could have survived into a space age future, where they go like the Solar Empire route, or they go this like 1984 Orwellian, like where it's just completely controlled, and it's so scary. It's super scary. So, and that's like some of the biggest themes in this book, is that it's dark. It's extremely dark in terms of the societies you meet, the peoples you meet, the issues Hadrian's going to be facing of death, loss, entropy, how to deal with the death of others, how to grieve, how to how to heal in a sense too. And this book takes you through a trip, and it's an emotional trip too, much more emotional than the other books. Like the other books had a lot of like really high points, where a lot of high action things where you're cheering, like yeah, like this is amazing. Some of the stuff that happened like in Demon in White and Howling Dark, like especially like when in Demon in White when Hadrian catches a sword, right? There's some moments where you want to stand up and cheer. And this book doesn't have those moments. This book is going to gut punch you. It's going to knock you down. It's going to kick you in the dirt and then throw sand in your eyes. Like this one, I will say, guys, it's a tougher read. It's a much more emotionally charged read. I definitely felt a lot more emotions in this book. Just, and especially if someone I've had to deal with in the recent my mother passed away a few years ago. And like recently, my grandmother passed away last year. So, dealing with that loss and that grief, it's still like fairly fresh. And so, it just shows you how characters can approach dealing with grief and how we all deal with grief in a different way. And, some of us externalize it, some of us internalize it. So, Christopher Ruocchio does an amazing job in this book of dealing with these serious topics, dealing with some very grotesque and just like dark motives in this book, where it's not the Suneater book you're prepared for, guys. And I wasn't prepared. Like, I know everyone said like if the book's called Kingdoms of Death, for crying out loud, so you're like, yeah, it's gonna be dark. But this, I didn't realize how dark it was and how dark it was gonna get. And there is a sense of hopelessness a little bit, and I think he does it so well because you love this character, Hadrian Marlowe. You love these characters who support Hadrian and who are the supporting cast. And like the thing is, like, it's weird because you're reading this story which is chronologically told, where Hadrian's like alive at the end to tell it, but you feel like he's not gonna make it, and it's really good. It's exceptionally well written. So. One of the things I do want to talk about that I thought was really good about this book was the world building and the society building he does for the Cielcen. He does a lot of work on the Cielcen here in this book. You get to understand them a little bit, from like Howling Dark to to Empire of Silence and Demon in White. You get to see the Cielcen and kind of figure out their motives and how they how they fit in this universe. But Kingdoms of Death does like super heavy lifting in this universe of telling you about the Cielcen, like telling you about their motives, and also there's a lot more stuff from like Siriani Doriaca, which is really good, where you get to see the big bad in a sense. Like you get to understand that big bad's motives, and they're not just this big baddie who's going to show up at the end and then the good guy kills him, right? It's this you get to add layers to a villain, which I always appreciate. So yeah, guys, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm going to be doing a deeper dive talk later with, I guess, as I said, with Jonathan and Liam's Lyceum. So we're going to get into like spoilers and stuff like that, like probably a few weeks from now, like once we've all read it and all got our reviews out. So there are some issues with the book that I do want to highlight that for me I didn't super enjoy as much. So the first one is pacing. There is a different pacing compared to the other novels, like especially with Howling Dark and Demon in White. Those had really consistent pacing, and I felt like I was just clipped through the book really nicely, and I never felt like there was a lull in action. Whereas this one, you can kind of feel that it had to be chopped and made a little bit longer to become its own singular book, because Ashes of Man and Kingdoms of Death were 2 books. And Christopher was told you had to split them, so he had to split them. So some changes had to be made, and I think some of those changes did affect the pacing a little bit. Especially, I say in like the first quarter, like after like the second quarter, it really kind of ground down for me a little bit, and it made it slower to read. And I also think the subject matter you're dealing with in this book, since it's much darker, there's much darker themes, it's harder to read. Like it's not as an enjoyable read, so it's really heavy at some points, and it really, like I said, it'll hammer you. Like this book will, for some readers, it'll make you cry. 100%. Like, you're gonna cry. Like, I almost cried in some parts, and it's just like I said, it's Christopher does not hold his punches in this book, which I appreciate. I think, but it was done in a way that I don't think he could have done it any other way. So that's probably the way I'll put it. So one of the other complaints I had was that there's this short story that's referenced all the time. So there was this planet that Hadrian had some dealings with on Array, with the demons in Array and Minos, and it was between like Howling Dark and Demon in White. And he does a like a little synopsis in Demon in White, but I haven't gone and read. So that story is in Tales of the Suneater Volume 1. I haven't gone and read it. And I felt like I needed to read it because, Hadrian meets characters and talks about events that he meets in this book where he's like, oh, where did I meet you? I met you on Array. And it's just like, like, I haven't read the story. And I don't like that, events in that are pivotal to one of the novels has to kind of come from a short story, and I don't want to be telling people, yeah, this is a good book, but you really need to read this stuff in the shorts collection. And I think maybe one of the things that Christopher should have done with like this Demons of Array story is kind of like where he has like that opening sequence, that action sequence, that James Bond kind of opening sequence, be the Demons of Array and say like Demons in White or something like that. Or so that was one of the things where I felt a little annoyed, where I'm like I feel like I'm missing out. I don't have all the information I want, going into the story where it is right now. But other than that was, again, maybe that's just a minor gripe, but for me, I found it a little bit off-putting. And then the last thing is, like, again, the themes are dark here, guys. It's a really different Suneater book. Sometimes it's hard to read. And I think a part of me that one of the reasons why I found it harder to read too is because maybe it's been too much of a good thing, in a sense that I've read a lot of Suneater like lately. I've read all 4 books up till like this year in 2022, so I've just been reading a lot of Suneater, and so maybe I was getting not burnt out on the series, but it was just too much of a good thing, right? So I'm really looking forward to getting to Ashes of Man, having that break from Suneater for a bit, and getting super hyped for Ashes of Man in December. So let's get to my overall rating for Kingdoms of Death. So I'm gonna rate Kingdoms of Death B tier, so bookshelf. Still a great book. It didn't really reach that Treebeard seal of approval or that S tier that the other books did in the series, just because of it's not what I mean. It's not that I didn't expect it to go like this, but I didn't expect it to go this dark and some of the themes he touched on. But Christopher's writing is absolutely beautiful as always. I did enjoy the book. It is a good book. It's just, for me, it's not as strong as Demon in White, Howling Dark. And if I was actually to rate and put the books in an order of where my enjoyment, it would probably be Demon in White, Howling Dark, Empire of Silence, and then Kingdoms of Death for me. But it could change. That could change when once I've had a chance to like think about it a bit more, and sit and reminisce, because it's a deep book. It's a really deep book, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this. So guys, hit me up on the Discord once you've read Kingdoms of Death, and we can chat it out in the Suneater channel. Obviously we can put spoiler tags on stuff so we're not ruining it for other people, but I just cannot wait to talk to you guys about this book. Please go and buy this book, Kingdoms of Death. Christopher Ruocchio, he's one of my favorite authors right now. Absolutely love his series. Love Suneater. Again, like, even though like stuff like it's dark and there's bad stuff that happens, but this guy is like one of my favorite authors. Like, it's definitely my favorite sci-fi series right now. So anyways, guys, I know this is a longer spoiler-free review, but as always, thank you guys for checking me out. If you want to be want to like, comment, subscribe, please do. But other than that, we'll see you next time. Cheers.